Mao. 2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Welcome up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Matthew Moreno, here to talk about the amazing Super Bowl we all just got to watch, Matt, as well as, some guy named Kiké Hernández re-signed with the Dodgers.
Yeah, there was the NFL thought they were going to have the big Super Bowl week and the day to themselves, and you had the NBA trade deadline overshadowing all the interviews and stuff. And then today, a couple hours before kickoff, Kiké Hernández announces that he's coming back. Obviously an exciting day for us in that regards. Pitchers and catchers reporting tomorrow, so certainly a ton to discuss. I know we'll give everybody a chance to also sound off on some Super Bowl things here first.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to talk Kiké Hernández, of course. We're going to talk 7 things I'm looking for in spring training with pitchers and catchers reporting in the next 24 hours. Dave Roberts with some interesting quotes on contract stuff, as well as some odds and ends from around Major League Baseball. But the Super Bowl did just happen. I know we're a baseball show. I know we're a Dodgers show. The Super Bowl did just happen. The game stunk. I was shocked at how bad it was. And yet I know for a gentleman like you, Matt, it sounds like to me the game is third on the priority list behind commercials and food. Is that fair?
Yes. No, I would probably put food first and then commercials and then the actual, I was interested in the game. I know I was texting you guys and I said, this is defense wins championships. This is something I get to. That's a stance that I firmly believe in other sports. Obviously not so, baseball a little bit, but less so when compared to college football and basketball and things like that. So I get to my eye test is validated tonight with the Eagles coming out and getting that dominating win. So that was nice.
Yeah. It was a brutal game. I can't believe it was as bad as it was. For the Chiefs to have gotten through, it's not like they played nobody on their way to the Super Bowl. They lost one game with their starters actually playing in the regular season. They beat the Bills yet again, and then just an absolute, whooping. We'll just leave it at that. We had the halftime show, which generated some controversy, I know, on a text thread that you and I were both on as well. So we do have that going for us. But commercials, you were underwhelmed, it sounds like.
Yeah, I didn't really care for the commercials this year. I thought that there just weren't a lot of great ones. Honestly, the ones that stuck out most, I would say, were for the movies that are coming out. Okay. I think I've discussed on here. Definitely, I know with you guys, I'm pretty sure I've expressed it on one of these shows. Like the Mission Impossible franchise, I think has been entertaining. And so I've been looking forward to kind of the next movie coming out this summer. Jurassic Park or Jurassic World, whatever it's called now, that new one looks okay. In terms of actual commercials, though, the Seal one, I think it was Mountain Dew with Seal, that was funny. I think it was cancer based with the kid ringing the bell and walking out like a boxer.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the boobs commercial, the breast cancer commercial.
No, the kid walking out. I thought that was kind of could be inspiring and was cool to see. Duncan kind of tried to reprise the magic that they captured. Was it last year or 2 years ago with Ben Affleck and I think Matt Damon? And I just felt like that sort of felt like you caught lightning in a bottle last year because I think it was so unexpected. And now to try to do it again, I just, I didn't really care for it too much.
Yeah, the one thing that's nice about being at a party is when the commercials stink, you're not really paying attention to the commercials. You're not listening to the announcers. And so you're just basically eating good food and waiting for a terrible football game to end. But here's the good news, Dodgers fans. Before the game got started, there were some solid sources, Matt, reporting that Kiké Hernández was going to come back to the Dodgers. That would be Kiké Hernández himself reporting his news first on Twitter and then on Instagram. Confirmed by other people as necessary. Bob Nightingale getting the news that it's a 1-year deal that Kiké Hernández is going to be back. We don't know numbers yet, so you and I haven't been able to settle our beef on if it's going to be closer to 4 or 5 million or 9 or 10 million. Remains to be seen who's closer to right on that one. But this is a move that I think all of us had at greater than 50%. We may have squabbled between 60% and 90%, but as expected by many, the day before pitchers and catchers report, the day before guys can go on the 60-day IL, Kiké Hernández reportedly reaches an agreement with the Dodgers. What convenient timing, Matt.
Yeah, I would say honestly, the only upset with this is that Clayton Kershaw wasn't first, just because I thought like pitchers and catchers are officially due in camp on Monday morning, and so I assumed that he would be first out of him and Kiké Hernández being back. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, no real surprise with the re-signing 1-year deal. Also, not a true shock. As you said, we don't at the time we're doing this live show, we don't know the salary yet. We don't know if it'll have more deferred money, which will upset a lot of people. Maybe a signing bonus, which I know will also send everybody up in arms. But yeah, I mean, it's a move that certainly made sense. Like as you mentioned, we all expected it to a certain degree, to various degrees throughout the offseason. I think as much as that was expected, what now becomes interesting is how the roster is going to kind of take shape.
Yeah. And can I just, before we move off of Kiké, we're going to talk more. I want to set the record straight on where I stand with Kiké. There's this narrative that's being perpetuated by a certain social media account over on Twitter that I don't like Kiké Hernández. And I want to make clear that my point all along was that Kiké Hernández is a great fit for the Dodgers. And I just did not think his value lie anywhere for other teams, because the Dodgers can weather a guy who does not produce significantly in the regular season, but is great in the postseason. And my point all along was just that I don't think he's going to cost as much as many Dodgers fans assumed that he would. Again, remains to be seen if I'm vindicated on that take or not. But Matt, I just need to set the record straight. I like Kiké Hernández. I like that he's a postseason performer, and those are the guys the Dodgers should be signing.
I think the record is that you're not sold on the Keektober nickname. I think that's
Fair.
where we need to see some progress and some buy-in from you.
It's ahead of Belltober. I'll tell you that. Was that your other one that you liked?
Yeah, Keektober, Belltober, Jocktober, Doctober. Yeah. They're. I mean, if you power rank those, I think Doctober and Keektober probably are 1 and 2, mainly because they're still with the team. If Bellinger had stayed healthy and still been with the Dodgers and been performing in October, then we would have a real argument over which one needs to be ranked first among all those.
Look, we'll shake on this. We'll compromise. Belltober can just disappear into the forgotten world of history, and Keektober, fine. I'm not necessarily saying I'm going to promote it, but I'm not going to discourage anybody else from saying it. Can we shake hands on that?
Sure, that works.
All right, we got some super chats. Phil saying, Kiké, about as close to a perfect offseason as you can get. I'm not disagreeing with Phil, other than I think this was a perfect offseason. Like, if this was one, I mean, the last 2 years, honestly, we're kind of like, well, if the Dodgers can do 2 of these 4 or 5 things, then it'll be great. And basically for 2 straight years, Matt, they've just done all 5 of them. Honestly, there's not a single person in the world that said Blake Snell and Roki Sasaki and Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates and Teoscar Hernandez and Michael Conforto. That's above and beyond. So A+++++ for the Dodgers this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, if you even want to take it back, 15 months ago? I mean, it obviously started with the Ohtani signing. From that point forward, I think the Dodgers have just been in the midst of a remarkable stretch. Signing Ohtani, I think we all sort of felt like the Dodgers were the most likely landing spot, but then was he just kind of a creature of habit and comfortable in Anaheim and going to stay there? And then, of course, there was the whole fiasco of him being on a plane to Toronto and signing with the Blue Jays, but not actually signing with the Blue Jays, it turned out. And then the Tyler Glasnow trade, which, look, I know that hasn't fully panned out yet because of his injury, unfortunately, but at least the potential is there. The name, it's a name brand. It's a ace caliber pitcher when he's healthy. Yeah. Yamamoto signing. And then, yes, all the injuries last season, but they win the World Series and then follow that up with all the names that you just rattled off. I mean, in sports history, not just baseball, but sports history, I don't know if there's ever been a stretch as successful, as impactful as what the Dodgers are in the middle of right now.
Yeah, and I guess I should agree with Phil because Walker Buehler did not come back to the Dodgers, so I think that's the 0.5% below 100%. It's maybe we're rounding up to an A+ at this point. So I guess I see some people in the chat saying, hey, where does Luka coming to the Lakers fit in this offseason as well? So maybe we have to factor that in for our friends over at Lakers Nation. But short of Walker Buehler coming back, Matt, I think that's the only thing I would have added here.
Yeah, and that definitely, I think I'll speak for both, but that's more of an emotional thing of just
100%.
wanting to keep him with the team rather than being concerned over like what are they going to do without Walker Buehler, and that's no slight to him. You and I think very highly of what Buehler is capable of, and in the same mold of Kiké Hernández. Like, maybe in the regular season you're going to get some inconsistencies, but when October rolls around, you know who's going to be ready, and that's you and I like keep stressing. The Dodgers are playing for October. Like, they have figured out. We know they have shown time and time again that they have figured out the regular season. Not that it doesn't matter, but they'll win somewhere between 92 and 115 some odd games now with this team. And so it is about October. And I don't think not having Walker Buehler means that they can't win the World Series. But yes, from being a draft pick of the Dodgers and just what he did for the franchise, like, it would have been nice to see him get to stick around and be part of defending the title.
Another super chat here from Sai says Kiké is back. Irony is that with Kiké signing this late every year, he never gets to be at FanFest. Haha, he should sign early, at least for that. We know why Kiké signed so late. And again, the timing of this confirms what many people speculated, which was this deal was probably done weeks ago, much like the Clayton Kershaw news that will surely be announced in the next couple of days, in that this timing makes sense because they just had a handshake deal. Hey, Kiké, we're going to sign you. Here's the number. We're good on the number. Great. We just need to wait till we can open some 40-man roster spots, which can happen. And so sadly, it means he misses FanFest. But the good news, Matt, is that if people can make the trip down to spring training, they'll get to see Kiké there.
Yeah, and maybe some people might have caught him at the Raising Cane's event. I forgot when I was covering that. It was early in the offseason, shortly
That's
after
true.
it was right after maybe a couple days removed from the World Series celebration. So maybe some fans got to see him there. I know that there was a large contingent on hand for that. But yeah, I mean, if it is unfortunate that just kind of the way the baseball business side of things has prevented Kiké from being at Dodger Fest, because obviously I know he is beloved by the fans, and it's a reciprocated from him. I know he's gone on record several times about how much he appreciates all the support that he's gotten since he first joined the team, over a decade ago now.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. We have one more super chat here. Stockton Slap saying, what is the percentage chance that we get Nolan Arenado? This is like a 1% for me, Matt. And here's why. And this is a perfect segue. So thank you, Stockton. We appreciate this. But when you look at the Dodgers roster, they now have 12 guys who are basically locks if healthy. Massive caveat, yes. But as of now, they are currently healthy. There are 12 guys who are locks to be on the 13-man opening day sort of non-pitcher side of the roster. That's Will Smith and Austin Barnes at catcher, Ohtani at DH, Freeman, Betts, Muncy, and Rojas in the infield, Conforto, Teoscar, Chris Taylor, Kiké, and Tommy Edman in the outfield. That leaves Hesung Kim, Andy Pages, and James Outman, the other guys on the 40-man roster, Hunter Veducia as well, who would be fighting for that final active roster spot. So when I look at that, that's why I don't think Nolan Arenado is coming. Obviously, Max Muncy is on this roster, and he's going to be playing third base. And sure, is there a world where like you trade Chris Taylor and you move Max Muncy to second base and Arenado? I just don't think Arenado is like, this is going to sound crazy to say. I think he actually is kind of a push to Max Muncy. Some people could argue maybe a slight upgrade. Others might argue a slight downgrade. But for the contract cost, for the sort of the seismic shift in the locker room, all of those types of things, I don't see it making sense on the surface, but when you dig beneath the surface and look at the roster, it makes less sense to me, Matt.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the scenario you outlined of, if this is how maybe Chris Taylor is traded, then perhaps. And I mean, with that possibility coupled with maybe the Dodgers feel like they need/want another right-handed bat for their lineup, fine. But moving Muncy to second base, I think there are some questions there, especially with the way like the defensive shift limitations now, needing to play on the infield dirt and can't go into the grass the way he used to when he last was at that spot. Yeah, I mean, I just don't. I mean, Stockton's asking. I know. What did you say? 0% chance?
I said 1% chance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like there because like I guess never say never, but it's 1 to maybe 5% at the most type thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you look at Nolan Arenado's numbers, he's basically been a league average offensive player for 2 consecutive seasons. If you go back to 2023 and 2024, we're talking about a guy, again, weighted runs created plus. You've heard me mention that number a lot. 100 is league average. He was 106 in 2023 in 144 games and 102 last year, 5.8 wins above replacement the last 2 seasons. Again, that factors in defense. Max Muncy's a 5-win player over the last 2 seasons and a much better offensive player, by the way. 135 weighted runs created plus last year, 118 the year before. So yes, Arenado would be a defensive upgrade over Muncy. But keep in mind as well, the Dodgers, we know that money is not the end-all be-all for this team, but part of the reason they might want to move off of Chris Taylor is because of the money he's getting paid. Nolan Arenado, you'd be trading for a guy who has a 25.5 luxury tax number this year and 2 more seasons of that, his age 35 and age 36 season. So I think even for a team like the Dodgers, at some point you have to make financial decisions. And I'm not sure the Dodgers want to be paying Nolan Arenado $25.5 million for the next 2 years, knowing that that's basically a $50 million number where they're at in the luxury tax situation. So it's a roster thing. It's a how much better is he than Max Muncy thing, and then also a financial thing. I think you add those 3 pieces up. I know lots of people have been talking about it. I'll say I haven't seen credible people necessarily suggesting that it's realistic, but this one just, the math doesn't add up for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, the Cardinals beat reporter for MLB.com, he put out something within the past few days that after, failing to really generate much traction on Arenado trade talks last month, that they revisited things with, I think, the Dodgers, Yankees, and there might have been one other team that he listed. Let me see, I could try and pull it up here really quick. Actually, give me a second. It was Red Sox, Yankees, and Dodgers about possible restructured deals. So, yeah, I mean, I maybe it's just coming back to kick the tires again. I think obviously maybe some of it is Arenado. I'm sure he wants to be home, right? Like there's always been the connection, the speculation that he was a fit for the Dodgers and he's from the area and this and that. But I mean, yeah, I just don't really see it making a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and I see people saying, well, hey, if you get off of Chris Taylor's contract and they throw in a little bit of money, again, the issue is the next 2 years. It's the $51 million in luxury tax money that will be owed after this one. And diminishing player. Yes, he hit 280 last year. His slugging percentage began with a 3 last season. He was 6th percentile in barrel rate, 9th percentile in average exit velocity, 20th percentile in expected slugging percentage, 12th percentile in hard hit rate. Like all of these numbers are discouraging for a player who is getting up there in age. And yes, look, we can try and speculate and say, hey, come to the Dodgers tweak some things. But at some point, if it's because you're aging as a baseball player, the Dodgers can't fix that. They can fix a 25, 26-year-old who needs a swing tweak, but a 33, 34, 35, 36-year-old, it's a little bit tougher. So it doesn't make sense to me. But again, part of that is due to just the state of the roster, and we'll get into that in a little bit. As far as how Kiké fits on the 40-man roster, Matt, let's talk about that really quick. There are no spots on the 40-man roster as of today, but tomorrow, pitchers and catchers report, which means tomorrow is the very first day that the Dodgers can take people off of their 40-man roster and place them on the 60-day injured list. Now, this is something I've had to educate myself on, who can go on to that list, when then they go on. So here's kind of the summary. If a guy is injured at the major league level, then they can be placed on the 60-day injured list. The reason that's significant is because if you're injured at the major league level, you continue accruing service time if that's the level where your injury happened. Kyle Hurt, however, was injured in the minor leagues, and therefore the Dodgers are going to do everything in their power not to place him on the 60-day IL because they don't want him accruing time sort of served in Major League Baseball. So what that means is Emmett Sheehan, Gavin Stone, River Ryan, Brusdar Graterol are the 4 guys currently on the Dodgers 40-man that will be moved quickly. Now, you only move guys as you have somebody to take their spot. So one of those guys will likely be moved to the 60-day IL in the next day or two to make room for Kiké. And then the next will wait until the next signing, which probably will be a gentleman by the name of Clayton Kershaw, who will then be signed and guess what? Eventually added to the 60-day IL himself. So again, Sheehan, Stone, Ryan, Graterol, and eventually Kershaw are the 5 players the Dodgers will eventually add to the 60-day IL. That will open up 5 spots on the 40-man, I should say 4 spots on the 40-man roster with the addition of Kiké. Keep in mind, Roki Sasaki will need a 40-man spot eventually. But that's how the math works, Matt. And again, part of this is the expected signing of Clayton Kershaw in the next few days.
Yeah, and the other thing, I wonder, the Dodgers, as you mentioned, have no shortage of options. So I wonder if they're going to just kind of spin a wheel of, okay, let's see who goes on the 60-day IL today and who's next. The other sort of angle to this is, yes, they do have several pitchers that they can do that with, but they're not going to necessarily they won't do it like in all one big way. And I know that you're not saying this. I just want to make sure that our audience fully understands. They won't do it in one just massive wave. Like they'll do these as they need it. So there'll be one that they'll put on the 60 days so that they can sign Kiké. There'll be another one that they put on the 60 days so they can sign Kershaw, who then himself could very well end up going on the 60 days so that they can add Sasaki to the 40-man roster. And so they'll do those things kind of as needed on a as needed basis throughout spring training and maybe the regular season if stuff happens here or there. But yeah, I mean, this, as you mentioned kind of at the top of the show, this is what we were all sort of looking at and kind of expecting with some of these signings and the final two signings, if you will.
Yeah. And again, so once Kershaw and Kiké Hernández are officially signed, the Dodgers essentially, by my math, will have 3 40-man roster spots available to play with. One of those will be designated for Roki Sasaki. So 2 spots available. Of course, down the line, all these guys have to get recalled off the 60-day IL if they want to be available. But those are some of the news and notes to keep an eye out for, Dodgers fans. Of course, they could move Kyle Hurt at some point if they desperately needed a spot, but by all indications, they're not going to want to do that. So that's some of the roster stuff that the Dodgers have coming up. Let's get to a couple more super chats here. Cy with another super chat. Muncy has not been seen all offseason. Is he secretly losing some pounds? Fact that the Dodgers are still involved in Nolan talks has me concerned about Max. On the second part, let me just add, there has been no confirmation from a reputable source that the Dodgers are involved in Nolan Arenado talks. There have been lots of reports by other teams' reporters that the Dodgers might be a team that Arenado wants to go to or a team that the Cardinals has reached out to, but those are very different things. So let's go back to Muncy here. Muncy has not been seen, Cy says. Is he secretly losing some weight? Have you seen Muncy at all, Matt? How's he looking?
I do feel like I saw him in the background of either some video or a picture of the players already at Camelback Ranch.
Great.
I mean, nothing like necessarily stood out of him looking. And was it last year or 2 years ago that those were the big reports, right? That Muncy was in a lot better shape. Yeah. That was a Freudian slip. That he was in a lot better shape than he had been before. So we haven't gotten stuff like that yet. But I'm fairly certain that Muncy is out at Camelback Ranch already. There
you go. Okay. 300 with the super chat. The only way Arenado comes is if they moved Muncy for a center fielder or a shortstop upgrade. 300, just so you know, they have a gold glover at shortstop. I don't know if you heard this. His name's Mookie Betts. I'm just kidding. I mean, look, yes, they would move Muncy. I think Muncy would probably, it doesn't make, anyways, again, we've done the Arenado thing here.
I mean, I think if you're looking at it from this standpoint, I think there needs to be, like, you're moving Muncy and Chris Taylor's money either together or in separate trades to bring on Nolan Arenado. Because like if it was this year and maybe next year for Arenado, okay, but if you're talking 3 seasons if you make the trade right now of Nolan Arenado, and that's a lot to kind of take on.
Yeah, and I saw someone in the chat saying we were idiots. And as many people have pointed out, Chris Taylor has a team option for next season that can be bought out for $3 or $4 million. So to call that a 2-year contract would be misleading. So there you go. Let's get to Dave Roberts, Matt. Some interesting conversations from Dave Roberts. Obviously, there's been speculation all offseason about his contract. At the beginning of the offseason, it was kind of like, hey, you know what? Once we get done with signing players, we'll talk to Dave. And then they signed players, and then they signed more players, and then they signed more players, and then more players, and then more players. And so here we are, pitchers and catchers reporting. And Dave Roberts is a lame duck manager, Matt. He went on Baseball Tonight radio, Baseball Tonight podcast, indicating they have just started talking about a contract extension. He said this, quote, hopefully everything takes care of itself. It's about value, and I love this organization. But yeah, you want to feel your value. Absolutely. Worth pointing out that Dave Roberts last season was the 11th highest paid manager in baseball at $3.25 million, less than half of what Craig Counsell was making to not make the playoffs with the Chicago Cubs. That was 5 years and $40 million. That Dave Roberts, as I mentioned, going into the final year of a 3-year extension signed in 2022. Do you expect, I mean, it's got to get done before opening day, right, Matt?
I would imagine so. I mean, I still do. Yes. To me, though, the takeaway was kind of how candid and frank I think Dave Roberts was about the value aspect. And I know I've mentioned this on a couple other shows that we've done. My gut and my hunch was sort of telling me that I feel like his salary might be not a sticking point, but a little
Yeah.
bit. And I think Dave coming out and saying you want to be valued, my interpretation of that, and it doesn't mean that I'm right. You could obviously have other people could have taken it differently.
No.
But that was my interpretation of, hey, like, I want to be here. It makes sense for me to be here. It makes sense for both parties. But they're like, you're not going to get me at, 6 million a year type thing anymore.
Yeah. 6 million would make him the second highest paid manager. So if I'm Dave, like, there's a couple things. I just said he signed a 3-year contract that paid him less than $10 million total over the course of that 3-year deal, according to the numbers that we have. Craig Counsell has signed his deal since then. He was in a unique situation where he was essentially a free agent, which most managers never get to. Again, the team he left made the playoffs. The team he came to didn't. So take that for what it's worth. I was initially skeptical that Dave Roberts would actually get more than Craig Counsell, because basically it's Counsell at $8 million a year. And then it's like Torey Lovullo at $5 million a year. And then it's a bunch of guys around $4 million. So I wondered if the Dodgers were going to be like, look, Dave, we love you. That contract is stupid. Like, that's not the market. So maybe you're going to be in that 6.5, $7 million range, but we actually aren't going to negotiate off the $8 million number because it's fake. It's not, it's crazy talk. It's sort of the Deshaun Watson contract in the NFL. It's like, yes, that technically did happen. Nobody's ever doing it again. But then Dave goes out and wins the World Series. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's now won 2 World Series. He's the best winning percentage in Major League history. He has all these things going for him. And oh, by the way, he just watched his team spend about $2 billion in the last 2 off seasons. And he goes, hey, Andrew, guess what? I know you have the cash and there's no luxury tax implications on my salary. So I would be shocked if it's less than 5 years. And I would be shocked, Matt, at this point, if it's less than $10 million a year. I think it's going to be 5 years and $50 million for Dave Roberts, almost as a starting point, because you can't go less years than Counsell got, and you can't go less money either.
I think the only way you get away with less money, at least from like an AAV standpoint, is if you give him more
like
years.
7 years or something.
Right. And if it's, $7 million a season, so he's not quite hitting 8, but he has the larger guarantee because it's more of a long-term commitment than what Counsell, even though Counsell's was 5 years, right? You said?
Yeah. Counsell made 5 years, $40 million. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do they go 7 years, $49 million type thing? Maybe that's how, but I think if you're Dave, and I think he is mindful of this, it's difficult for these managers, right? Like, these games, like, the teams win. And this was a unique situation for Dave Roberts. He got a lot of credit because of the Dodgers had 3 starting pitchers for all of the playoffs. And so, he was needing to really manage the bullpen well. And that hadn't been his strong suit over recent years. And so the spotlight was really on him. But more times than not, the team wins, you're not hearing about the manager. The team loses, the manager's getting fired. And then after that, maybe it's the general manager and stuff like that. And Dave is mindful of that. And I think he could look at it. And it's a reason argument of, hey, I have won 2 World Series as a manager. My winning percentage is this. I don't have issues in my clubhouse like some of these, you're the favorite team we like to mention of having all the talent down in San Diego, but not being able to
not anymore.
True. Back then, not being able to keep them together and needing, I think your phrase was an adult in the room, if I'm remembering correctly. The Dodgers have not had those issues.
Nope.
And so you add all that stuff up, and if Dave Roberts would almost be selling future managers short if he were to take kind of a team friendly deal, if you will. And I think he's mindful of that. And I get it, because look, like, the managers are first 9 times out of 10, they're first on the chopping block.
I'm glad you said this, Matt, because as soon as you sort of went down that path, I found myself completely in agreement. Dave Roberts is the type of guy who believes that the managers are a fraternity, and he sees himself as having an opportunity to help every other manager that is currently employed and every other manager that will future be employed by saying, if I take less than what Craig Counsell got, I am going to validate and vindicate exactly what this guy Jeff just said on this podcast, which is that contract's ridiculous and we're not even going to negotiate off of it. If he gets less than $8 million, the Craig Counsell numbers disappear from history. They disappear from every negotiation. And so I think Dave recognizes the leverage he has with the Dodgers, but also the unique position kind of in quote unquote history that he is in to say, I can do something that is going to benefit every manager that comes after me, because now the new norm is not going to be 5 million, it's going to be 10 million. And Dave has the ability to do that. He has owners he knows can afford to pay him, and he has all of the leverage in the world. So I think what you just said is totally true. And it's why I think he gets to $8 million, more than $8 million in the AAV, at least in some form or fashion.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, even if he does, like, kind of raise the bar or maintain it at minimum, like, it still is a rare group, right?
100%.
But it at least creates the opportunity. Like the Mets aren't going to go and give I shouldn't have used them because now their manager's name is escaping me. Whoever their manager is, like, if he's up for a contract extension and they haven't necessarily won a World Series, he's not going to be able to say, hey, well, wait a minute, Dave Roberts got this money, like, why am I? Like, it still is going to require, I think, a certain level of success for you to reach it. Yeah. But at least Dave Roberts would have created that opportunity. Whereas, yeah, if he comes in and says, hey, just pay me $5 million a year, I'm fine with that, then it hurts the market. And I think he feels that responsibility and as you mentioned, like, wants to, be sure to set it. The Craig Counsell thing, I mean, that was ironically the Cubs doing it when they don't have money. Somehow they found money to pry the manager away from Milwaukee. And I get it. Like, I sort of get it, but I don't I guess that's what it took. I should say I get it from the standpoint of, I guess you had to quote unquote overpay to get Craig Counsell to make that change.
Yeah.
Short of something like that, I mean, I don't necessarily think it was and I don't want to be critical of somebody's earning power, but I don't think it was warranted, really. Like, Craig Counsell, he's a good manager. I don't think he was anything great. Obviously doesn't have a World Series during his managerial career. So yeah, that is still a little bit of an outlier, but it does exist. And Dave Roberts now, it's a perfect storm for him. Not only did the Dodgers just win the World Series, as you mentioned, not only has the team been on a huge spending spree, but he also had his fingerprints all over their October run last year.
I will say, looking at the highest paid managers, I'll just read you the list in order. I mean, this is comical. Like, some of the owners, just be thankful these aren't your owners. So Counsell number 1, Torey Lovullo number 2, fine. Bruce Bochy number 3. This is the one that kills me. Ron Washington is the 4th highest paid manager in Major League Baseball with the Angels. Ron Washington. Stephen Vogt tied, Bob Melvin tied, Mike Schilt tied, Brian Snitker tied. Those guys all make $4 million. Then you've got David Martinez and Aaron Boone, 9-10, and then Roberts, followed by Cora, Kevin Cash, Derek Shelton, and then Carlos Mendoza for the Mets, making 14th highest paid, $1.5 million.
Yeah, sorry not to cut you off, but that's Alex Cora is another name to sort of keep an eye on with this stuff too. I mean, he is well regarded, I think, in the industry by a lot of people, and he's somebody who I think
not all people.
We'll be looking to get a raise.
Absolutely. So again, something to keep an eye on as we head deeper and deeper into spring training, because I just can't imagine this doesn't get done prior to opening day. Let's get to a couple super chats here. 300. Maybe they can defer some of Dave's contract. Sure. Who cares? None of that'll even get reported probably. So knock yourself out. I mean, again, there are no luxury tax implications on manager salary. So the Dodgers have paid the money on all the non-taxable stuff. And so who knows? Dave Roberts might be next on that list. We got another super chat from Tim. Going back to the conversation on Muncy and Arenado, he said 2 possible reasons to keep third base open next year. Murakami, who's a Triple Crown winner in Japan, or even Vlad Jr., 12 starts at third base last year. I don't think Vlad Jr. is going to be the solution at third base. I don't think he's going to be the solution anywhere in the field at some point. But look, I don't know if you noticed this, Matt. The Dodgers have had some success with international free agents of late. And so Murakami's a guy a lot of people are talking about. And, I know Max Muncy, I believe, has a couple team option years left after this year. Very, very cheap, like $10 million a piece. But, Murakami's going to be the big name a year from now. He's going to sign a big contract. And the Dodgers just coincidentally happen to kind of be lacking a long-term plan over at third base.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit of a pipeline to Japan being
is that what they're saying?
Is that what they're saying? That's what there's this website that I read semi often that they've been promoting a lot of Japanese talent coming over to the Dodgers. So I'm
one
just
year,
learning
one
about
club option, by the way, for Muncy. So it's a $10 million club option next year, and that's it.
Yeah. So, I mean, Tim brings up a great point. I think the Dodgers certainly do value their versatility in terms of decision making as much as they do with players on the field. So, yeah, that could be something.
There we go. Kayatone says, here's half. You'll get the other half upon receipt of renderings of the new clubhouses. This is a lot of fans are very interested in this. I don't blame them. We kind of haven't gotten anything from the Dodgers, though, on this front, as far as what the renovations and the new construction look like. Right, Matt?
Not really. Bill Plunkett did just speak to Stan Kasten the other day, and Kasten basically said, it's going to help make the clubhouse is definitely going to be larger, and then some of the other facilities that players use is going to, I think he called them, quote, like state of the art type thing. So it's just upgrading a lot of that stuff, which again, unless the Dodgers release a picture or rendering of, hey, here is what our batting cages look like now, we won't get to see any of that stuff. The clubhouse, you might get to see it in the background of some of our videos, but I mean, other than that, like they do have a no photos policy in the clubhouse. On occasion, if there's something that would warrant taking a picture, we can run it by PR. But if we were to just say, hey, like, can we take a general picture of the clubhouse? I mean, that would be a little difficult. They'd want to make sure that players aren't changing and stuff like that. So I just don't really see that happening. But hey, hopefully we can get some sort of renderings, and then we could collect the other half of that super chat money we apparently could possibly have coming.
Absolutely. As always, we appreciate all of the super chats. We appreciate all of the support. That's what helps us be able to keep doing this. Again, it's a few nights a week during the preseason, during the offseason, and then ramping up a little bit once the regular season gets going as well. So thank you to everybody who's joining us live on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and especially to the folks who are able to leave us a few bucks on the super chat front. Let's get to a couple other storylines, Matt, that are sort of making their rounds. We're going to do kind of a spring training preview on Tuesday night, which, by the way, Bruce Kuntz, if you're familiar with him, he writes a lot about the Dodgers, some prospect stuff over at Dodgers Digest, among other places. He's going to be on with me on Tuesday night, talking about some of the young guys, spring training storylines, that kind of a thing. So that should be a fun one. We've had him on before, and he's a good one to have on. So, Matt, the next topic here is an interesting one to me, which is Tanner Scott. And the question has been, okay, the Dodgers signed Tanner Scott. They signed Kirby Yates. They've got 6 dudes who are closer type material, I would say, in the back. And there has been a discussion among us on our show, among other places, on who is going to actually close games for the Dodgers. Well, Dave Roberts and Brandon Gomes both indicating that it's probably going to be Tanner Scott. Are you surprised that the Dodgers are going to, at least in theory, name somebody the closer? And if so, are you surprised that it's Scott?
I've gone back and forth on this. On one hand, I'm a little surprised that, so when at Tanner Scott's press conference, this question did get brought up, and Brandon Gomes said Tanner Scott's going to get, certainly a lot of save opportunities, but he also stopped short of calling him the closer. And then, as you mentioned, Dave Roberts then went, I believe it was with MLB Network Radio, said Tanner Scott's going to be our closer to begin the season. And so I'm a little surprised, on one hand, that they are committing to just one relief pitcher, because we've seen multiple seasons now of them sort of keeping the door open, even if we know that, okay, so-and-so is the de facto closer, but they're not necessarily saying it. Like, I thought that was just what we were going to get with Tanner Scott. The fact that they picked him again, like, I'm sort of surprised, but not surprised. Like, on one, he's your new 30-year-old relief pitcher that you paid big money to. Like, yeah,
he's the most expensive guy out there, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense you're going to put him in the closer role. But on the other hand, and this is something I know we've discussed either on our shows or just kind of within our staff, amongst our staff, like, is he valuable sort of like a Blake Trinan, where if you're in a high leverage situation in the 6th or 7th inning, then you want to be able to use Tanner Scott as well. And that, like, now sort of naming him the closer, I think eliminates that opportunity. And I also thought, just from the standpoint of a workload perspective, if the Dodgers have all these different relief pitchers who you basically can trust equally to get saves, at least to begin the season, right? Like, roll them all out there. If one or two seem to grab hold of it better than the others, then okay, adjust. I thought that would make sense just to get through a long year. But yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to hedge. Like, I am surprised, but I'm not surprised, but I am surprised, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I'm with you. It doesn't surprise me that they named the guy they paid the most money to be their quote unquote closer. I would be surprised if they actually had a closer and not multiple guys. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. The Dodgers had 5 players who registered 2 or more saves last season. Do you know who led the Dodgers in saves last year, Matt?
I believe I do because I wrote it in an article that I got ready.
Here we
I
go.
think it's Evan Phillips.
Okay.
The number
Evan
was
Phillips was first.
18, right?
18 for Evan Phillips. Do you know who was second on the Dodgers in saves?
Yes, I do, because I also wrote that.
Look at that guy.
Daniel Hudson, I believe.
Don't tell
12.
people you wrote the article. Just be like, let's see. I'm going to guess. Yes, Daniel Hudson was second. You wrote the article. So now we're going to be mad if you don't get 3, 4, and 5. Do you know who was third on the Dodgers in saves?
I this one I don't, because I stopped at naming who had the most and who was second most.
There's one person with 6, one person with 5, and one person with 2. One of the 3 names will surprise you.
So Kopech
Kopech was
on there?
third. He had 6.
Okay. So now I need 2 more.
2 more.
Trinan, did he end up cracking
Trinan
that?
did not. He might have been on the list of 1. There's 9 guys who had 1 save. Dinelson Lamet on the list of guys who had 1 save, by the way. So
okay.
There you go.
I thought you were going to say he was
no,
one of the.
He was not 2, but he was only 1 behind. So we've got a guy with 5 and a guy with 2.
Vesia?
Vesia was 5.
So I need the person that had the 4th one.
So you got 1 through 4. So do you know who? There was only one other player on the Dodgers other than those 4 who had more than 1 save. This player had 2.
Still on the team?
Still on the team. Much to my chagrin.
I guess Banda.
Banda got 2. Yeah, and I mean, I list those guys out again. Phillips with 18 led the team. He was 23rd in major leagues in saves last year. Obviously, Phillips was hurt for a while, so that factored in. But my point is that the saves were spread across 14 different Dodgers had saves last year. Nobody had more than 18. Again, if Phillips had been healthy, maybe that number's closer to 30. You could probably factor in he gets the 10 that Hudson got and maybe 5 or 6 from Kopech as well. But Kirby Yates, by the way, was 7th in Major League Baseball. Tanner Scott was 19th in Major League Baseball. So both had more saves than anyone on the Dodgers last year. But that'll be interesting. I mean, if I put the over-under at 24.5 saves, do you think Tanner Scott gets more than 25 or more saves next year?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that would be a bet on health, right? Because Phillips probably gets to 25 or more last year if he's healthy. Yeah. I think Scott gets there. I don't think we're going to see 45 to 50 like a guy like Ryan Helsley last year, but I think somewhere in that 25 to 35 range is where a guy like Tanner Scott lands.
Yeah, I agree. And that's still what I find most interesting about this is theory. And look, because Dave Roberts comes out and tells MLB Network on, February 9th that Tanner Scott's our closer to start the season. We could get to May 1st. We could get to the Dodger Stadium opener and they could decide internally, actually, guys, this is what we're going to end up doing. And that we won't necessarily know about it. The players will know, and that'll be it. I still, though, am surprised from the standpoint is they could have kept with the philosophy that they have sort of had. And basically what I envisioned with the experience, with the success of the relief pitchers in this bullpen now, Yates, Scott, Kopech,
Phillips.
Yeah, but if those 3 maybe you wanted to kind of rotate, like you're the closer for these 2 nights, and then when you're not available, we need to get you rest, then we're going to go to you. That would have made a little bit more sense. And if they told Phillips and Trinan, hey, you guys are kind of secondary on that tier, but we prefer you in the fireman role type thing. Yeah. Like that's what I was sort of expecting them to do, not necessarily. And again, I know that it's take it with a little bit of a grain of salt because things could change. It's a long season. I still was surprised that this early, Dave Roberts to say, yes, he's going to be our closer to start the season.
Yeah. And to your point, like there's a real chance that the Dodgers do exactly what you just indicated, which is it possible they just kind of have these guys set up? Because I think that would add to longevity. If you're trying to be available for October, instead of having the bullpen sort of live in limbo of like, am I pitching today or not pitching today? It's like, hey, Tanner Scott, like if we have a save opportunity, it's going to be you. If we need a fireman, Blake Trinan, it's you tonight. And, Anthony Banda and Evan Phillips, be available. Like those are the 4 guys that are kind of available. And tomorrow, depending on how those guys are used, like I just wonder if they set up something like a rotation like that to see how it plays out. But again, for now, Gomes and Roberts both indicating that that Tanner Scott will be the first player to get save opportunities. For those who are curious, by the way, Let me give you the other guys who got saves for the Dodgers last year. This is an A+ list. Johan Ramirez, a save for the Dodgers in 2024. JP Fireisen, a save. Brent Honeywell, Blake Trinan, Dinelson Lamet, Ryan Yarborough, Landon Knack, Justin Robleski, and Edgardo Enriquez. It's like, which one name does not belong on that list? It's like you have Blake Trinan and half those guys aren't in the major leagues anymore. Half those guys are somewhere else. It's what an unbelievable list. So there you go. We'll see. We'll see if Tanner Scott ends up getting. Matt and I, if the over was at 25, would both be taking the over. I'd probably go under 35. Somewhere in the 25 to 35 range would be my guess for Tanner Scott. And by the way, Matt, if they win a bunch of games by 1,000,000 runs, you can't get saves. You know, Tanner Scott will not be recording any 3-inning saves. I can guarantee you that at some point. So, all right, let's move on to one more topic that I think is kind of an interesting one. And then we'll get to some questions. We've got some food things we need to discuss. Rob Manfred is getting angry emails from fans, Matt. And this might be the funniest thing ever to me, that he like literally went and had a media appearance and interview and said, I keep getting emails from fans who are mad. In case those fans are wondering, Rob Manfred does not believe that the Dodgers are ruining baseball, was kind of the headline. But I guess my biggest question, Matt, is how do these people get his email address? I'd like to send Rob Manfred angry emails about things.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably out there. So I guess it's rob.manfred@mlb.com or something like that. But credit to Manfred's assistant for relaying some of these emails to him, because I find it hard to believe that Rob Manfred is the person reading the emails that he is apparently getting from angry fan bases. And again, look, I get the frustration and stuff. You and I have discussed this at nauseum, and Blake and Scott, like we all have. And I understand that the Dodgers are afforded certain luxuries from being a big market, from having a smart front office, from being in LA, all that stuff. Like there are advantages baked into that. I get it. But again, like Stephen, is it Nesbitt from The Athletic?
Yeah.
He, shared something. I don't know if he was resharing something or just putting old info. Like the Pittsburgh Pirates haven't signed a free agent to a multi-year contract in like a decade or so. Like it was some crazy stat. And I know the Pirates are often mentioned in amongst these videos when we're using examples of other teams, shortcomings. But like, how is that possible? And if you're going to be upset with the Dodgers, fine. But then how are you going to allow a team like that to not sign, as long as I have it correctly, a free agent to a multi-year contract for that long of a time? Like it's inexcusable.
I just found the link that he quoted. So they have not signed. You were slightly off. It's not 10 years. Right. They have not signed a multi-year free agent contract since Daniel Hudson in 2017. So 7 or 8 years here.
My apologies to the Pirates front office for being more aggressive there.
The record contract for an external free agent, so somebody who is not already on the Pirates, the most money they have ever given to an external free agent, Russell Martin in 2012, 2 years and $17 million. That's unbelievable. The record is 2 years and $17 million. Unbelievable. Again, Daniel Hudson, who's like out of the league. That's the longest, the last time they signed a multi-year contract.
And that's also a Pirates team that was like a fringe playoff team that was making a little bit of noise when they were getting in. And so like you're like that, just again, it's my biggest point about this whole thing is you have too many owners that just don't care about competing or actually want to win is my point. And I don't think that gets enough attention or criticism.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. You're spot on. He did mention, by the way, Rob Manfred, that the owners have discussed the merits of a salary cap. He did say he doesn't think the cap is the only sufficient remedy that they could pursue in a 2026 collective bargaining. That CBA expires in December of 2026. So we've got almost 2 years until it expires. He doesn't think it's the only remedy to what he perceives to be some potential problems. But again, he doesn't think the Dodgers are a problem. That was the other kind of interesting note to come out of his remarks.
Yeah, and honestly, I was surprised by all of it. One, I like it. Rob Manfred works for the owners, right? And so the Dodgers are the outlier, and them and I guess the Mets, if you want to group them together right now, like they're the two outliers in terms of spending and being aggressive and trying to really go for it financially. So I was a little shocked that Manfred would come out and publicly say, no, they are not. Like, maybe he would sugarcoat it like, well, some people might view it that way. There's pros and cons, but like to say that they're not a problem, I thought was impressive. And I think he gets ridiculed a lot. And so give him credit for standing up to that narrative.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought was interesting was him saying, he doesn't necessarily believe that a salary cap is the only way to go.
Yeah.
I think some of it is he probably knows that if MLB tries to go down that path, like it's not going to happen. And what concerns me, and I don't want to like send this stream down, in a downer because it's still a couple years away, is that there already are talks of a lockout coming because of the financial stuff. And so, it's going to be unfortunate when I'm sure the owners are going to pitch a salary cap. The players are going to say absolutely not. And they're going to say, okay, we're locking you out. Like a lockout shouldn't be inevitable, or just a foregone conclusion, which I felt like the last time the CBA was coming up, it was. And I feel like already now, like we're 2 years out from it, or a year, 2 full seasons from the CBA expiring. And there already is, a lockout is going to happen. It's just a matter of will games be lost or not? Like that's not great. And again, the owners want to, continue lining their pockets. Well, how about like we actually play games on time? We keep growing the sport and in that regard. And hey, if they do want a salary cap, then maybe we'll get some parity like we just saw in the NFL where the Eagles and Chiefs have not played in a Super Bowl recently. The Chiefs have not been making it back to Super Bowls. So that's the type of parity that a salary cap guarantees. So fine. I guess sign me up for that.
Totally. And just again, to reiterate what you just said, the owners would be fine with the salary cap because it limits the amount of money that they can spend. And when I say the owners, I'm saying by and large, the Dodgers would not be in favor of a salary cap because it would hinder them. But 85% of the league would be fine with one. The players do not want one because they don't want anything that is going to limit the amount of money that the players can make by limiting the amount of money that the team like the Dodgers or the Mets could spend. And so at worst, they would maybe say, okay, well, then we need a salary floor that's much higher, like $150 million salary floor. And the owners, half the owners are never going to go for that because half the owners are at like $80 million a year. And so that's where the negotiation is going to happen. It's why many people think a salary cap and a salary floor will never happen because it's just a non-negotiable. Like a salary cap is a non-starter for the players and a salary floor is a non-starter for the owners. It's not even worth arguing about. Now, do they decide to die on those hills? That's the question we're going to find out in a couple of years. But thankfully, we've got 2 World Series to fight for between now and then. Yeah,
and I think last thing, the players would probably, I venture to guess, they're going to argue that there already is a soft salary cap in place with the luxury tax, not only the luxury tax threshold, but then the different tiers of penalties for it. And so I think that they would argue like we are already operating under one. Look, it's not like a bunch of teams continue to blow past the luxury tax threshold.
Yeah, totally. And until this year, the Dodgers didn't even really blow past it. Like the Dodgers over the last 3 or 4 years have sort of navigated their way of trying to dip under the cap 1 year to reset the penalties. And so obviously Shohei Ohtani and the money that comes with Shohei Ohtani sort of changed the calculus entirely. But again, Rob Manfred says, hey, the owners have discussed the salary cap, but he doesn't think the cap is the only way forward to sort of maybe navigate some of the challenges that Major League Baseball is currently facing, while also saying, I don't think the Dodgers are a problem. From Baseball and Stan Kasten, Mark Walter. Was it Mark Walter that came out? And
everybody from the Dodgers has said at various points throughout the offseason that no, they're not ruining baseball. And I know I said last thing on my last comment. This is really the last thing. Roki Sasaki's free agency was not a free for all. That was effectively operating with some sort of salary cap measures, if you will. Where did he end up signing?
Yeah, for less money, by the way.
So are we sure that a salary cap is going to prevent, the Dodgers from allocating all this talent? Like, give me a break.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. All right, let's get to some questions. We're nearing the hour mark. Thank you to the almost 2,000 people in here live with us on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. We appreciate you. Thanks for those listening after the fact via podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google. You can find the DodgerHeads podcast there as well. Go ahead, throw something in the chat, all caps questions, and we'll get to as many of those as we possibly can. Again, we'll be back live on Tuesday night. Myself and Bruce Kuntz will be here talking spring training, non-roster invitees, and all that kind of thing. Blake and Scott on Thursday night. And then, of course, Matt and I will be back next Sunday as well. Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. That's our rhythm all the way up until opening day. Matt, we can just get started here because I know you do have one major announcement that you want to make as it relates to some food. You've scoured Los Angeles for the greatest pastrami sandwich that exists. And I believe you have some results you want to share for us.
Yeah, so I mean, I had it down to kind of two favorites, which were Cantors and Langers, and I got to give credit to my aunt for organizing a blind taste test with
Wow.
pastrami sandwiches, some matzo ball soup. So it was a lot of fun. Got a chance to do that. I am here to announce the definitive best pastrami sandwich in LA is from Cantors.
Okay.
Langer's was very good. The biggest difference was in the bread. Cantor's was a little bit of a softer bread. Didn't really have as much like kind of crunchy crust. So yeah, that was good. Langer's though did have better matzo ball soup than Cantor's did, which I was not expecting kind of going into it.
Common Sense says Brent's in Northridge. Have we tried this?
I have not tried it. That's why I kind of like I've kept it to LA based specifically.
Okay.
Northridge a little further out.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Somebody wants to know where the hat ranks.
No, look, I mean, if you guys like, you're trying to antagonize me here. Like, I've gone on several rants of the hat not having real pastrami sandwiches, and that is, you mentioned players and owners of what hill they will die on. That is one that I will die on. The hat's pastrami is not good and is not anywhere near the level of Langer's or Cantor's.
I love the hat. For the record, I love the hat. So
Their the hat's burgers and chili cheese fries are good, but
okay,
pastrami, no.
Common Sense says Northridge is part of LA.
I mean, like if you want to get technical, sure, but it's not like if you tell somebody you're going to LA and you end up in Northridge, they're going to look at you like, wait a minute, I thought you said you were going to LA.
Fair. I don't see any baseball questions. Cole has a very important one. What's your go-to donut choice? And if that isn't available, what's your fallback donut? I've got an easy go-to. I'll think for a second on my fallback.
Okay. My easy go-to is the white frosting with sprinkles on it.
Love it.
Yeah. Very good. I have those.
Cake or the raised donut?
So I feel like I've gone back and forth over what my preference is. I think maybe cake.
Yeah. Good choice. Good answer.
But yeah, I had those donuts at our wedding as kind of like along with like the cake. Like we also did little donuts for people to take. So it is my favorite. Fallback would be probably a sugar donut, either a twist or just a round one.
Okay. The easy first choice is an apple fritter. It's absolutely goated in the donut world, and there's nothing that's even remotely close to it. So, but if for a fallback, I would actually say cake donut, frosting, and sprinkles would probably be my backup as well. But yeah, I mean, apple fritters, a great apple fritter is just not even, it's in its own tier. It might be it's like probably in my top 5 desserts, just sweets in general. I'd probably have apple fritter in there. So there you go. You have a favorite donut shop?
No, I mean, I've tried different like independent ones. There's one not far from me that in where I live is pretty good. But like, I don't, in terms of like Winchell's, like it's not, Krispy Kreme, I don't care. I've expressed this. Like, I don't care for Krispy Kreme. So I try to lean more towards the independent shops. I feel like they have better donuts.
You don't like Krispy Kreme?
No, I've shared this before. I think it's overrated.
Jeez, just a standard glazed donut from Krispy Kreme, 6 seconds in the microwave. That's top tier right there. That's top tier. The donut shop where I lived was called Yum Yum Donuts. Amazing. It never dawned on me how absurdly funny that name is. But yeah. Then someone was like, wait, it's called Yum Yum Donuts? I'm like, you know what? Now that you say it like that, I kind of understand. I try to understand. Here we go. Aaron has the beef. Let's go. Aaron,
Yeah.
Jeff, I tried animal fries minus the cheese. I'm not a fan. I'm sticking with animal fries next time. You lost all credibility in everything, everywhere, all at once and for eternity. Aaron, I apologize. I'm not actually a fan of animal fries. So I'm going to start out there. I think they're overrated. I think In-N-Out fries, when you learn how to order them correctly, i.e. light well, and you dip them in the spread, it's fantastic. I found out you could get spread and grilled onions on top of the fries for free, so I tried it, and I thought it was okay. They were soggy because I had to take them to go, so I wouldn't advocate for it, but I'm not a big animal fries guy. And if you love animal fries and I told you to take off the cheese, I would understand your frustration. I was saying what I got didn't cost me anything. So that was my point. I forget. Blake thinks they're the greatest thing ever. Do you like animal fries?
Not particularly.
Okay. There you go. Oh, here we go. Jedi Engineer. I see a bunch of people with this. Has Jeff shared Voodoo Donuts with the Dodger Blue Crew? Here's the thing. Have you heard of Voodoo Donuts, Matt?
I have. They have one at Universal Studios.
Okay. Voodoo Donuts is a bit. Like, this is like the
I agree.
classic place where it's like you would go there because they were like the first person to ever do a maple bar with a strip of bacon on top of it. They had a donut that's wildly inappropriate that I'm not going to discuss here that had cream filling in it. Okay. Like, that was why Voodoo Donuts was famous. It was in Portland. Now it's everywhere. The boxes are cool. I don't actually think it's very good. That's my take.
I remember, I don't know if I might have had it once. I remember before I did try it, looking at the menu and thinking like, this is just crazy souped up donuts that I don't necessarily care for. So yeah, I mean, what you said, definitely try. I don't, if I did have it, I remember thinking that it didn't leave a lasting impression. So like I said, I might have had it once. If not, like I looked at the menu and I thought I just have no interest in all this crazy stuff.
The maple bacon bar, like, it was cool. It's interesting. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but it's like creative. And again, they have like funky donuts and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's sort of outgrown. It's what it deserves. Don't care 187 may or may not be Blake Williams' burner. We're gonna have to investigate this. I heard Jeff doesn't like cheese on his pizza. You were on with me when we had this conversation. I'm trying to tell people, if a guy tells you he ordered chicken parmesan from IHOP, you shouldn't listen to him when he talks about food. Blake is spouting conspiracy theories about my view on cheese, Matt. So what did you hear me say about cheese?
I heard you say that cheese is overrated.
That's not true. That's not what I said.
In some cases, and because of the way we like to needle each other, that has definitely become.
That was a long pause before "in some cases." That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, that is because we like to give each other a hard time. It has definitely transformed into Jeff hates cheese now, which is fun. And so we all have our things that we get picked on about, whether they're based in truth, some truth, no truth. Is regardless, it doesn't matter. If we feel like there's a narrative that's been built, then it's something that we run with. And I'm speaking of our staff and just giving each other a hard time. It's always all in fun. Aaron, I mean, look, Aaron is saying Jeff does.
The irony is there is someone on our staff who legitimately hates cheese, and it is not me. There is somebody on our staff who does not like pizza because it has cheese on it, and it is not me. So I did have cheese. I had a Cheese Whiz-esque, by the way, on a Philly cheesesteak tonight. So for the record, to reiterate my point, I said two things about cheese that got people mad. I think cheese on burritos. Yes, he doesn't like cheese on Mexican food outside of quesadillas because quesadillas, like, that's a whole cheese. I think cheese on burritos are wasted. It's wasted. I can't even taste it. So I said that. And I also said I don't like cold sandwiches with cold cheese on them. Those are the two things I said. I didn't say I didn't like pizza. I didn't say I didn't like a good melt sandwich. You know, some melted cheese on pretty much anything. I sent you a picture. I made nachos tonight, Matt. Did you notice how much cheese was all over that nachos? 2 different types of cheese, I might add. So, you know, I just want to say that I'm not anti-cheese.
Yeah, but like I said, the narrative is stuck, and so it might be a while until you're able to shake it. And also, I do want to caution. I know sometimes when we discuss food, people get a little upset. Jeff and I are scanning the chat. There are not baseball questions, so if you have them, we will answer those. But if we are only getting food topics, that is what we sort of stick to for the time being.
Yeah, we set aside time to answer questions, all caps questions, and that's what I got. Okay, I'll throw one more food thing at you because I mentioned this, and I said that I think Super Bowl Sunday is the greatest food day of the year. This is a hot take because there are other days such as Thanksgiving and Christmas and I don't know what other day. 4th of July was thrown out there. I'm just telling you, the food that I ate today, I made a platter of nachos, carnitas nachos, cheese, pico de gallo, black beans, homemade guacamole, sour cream. That's what I brought to the table. There were mozzarella sticks there. Somebody made these candied salmon bites, like cubes of fresh salmon, caramelized. Great. We had chips and dip. We had mozzarella sticks. We had homemade pico de gallo, homemade guacamole. I had pie at the end of it. Somebody brought Philly cheesesteaks over. Like, make your own Philly cheesesteak bar. I'm just telling you that those are all the best things right there. Like, you're giving me that or like turkey, and I'm taking all of the appetizers for all of time on Super Bowl Sunday. That's all I'm saying.
I feel like you picked the right person to have this to raise this topic with because Thanksgiving, right? As you know, Thanksgiving right off the bat is pretty much off the table. Like, I don't view Thanksgiving as a huge, great food holiday. I did see that you said that. I did think about it, and I think I do have to side with you mainly because of the versatility.
Yeah.
Theoretically, with Thanksgiving, you're limited to pretty, kind of traditional food options, unless you get a little creative, like
Unless
I
it's
do.
you or Blake. Blake telling me he
Uh,
loves Thanksgiving I'm like, you eat tamales on Thanksgiving. Like that's not the normal, that's not the expected food on Thanksgiving. So I get it if that's what you're eating, but that's not what most people are eating.
right. Christmas, I think maybe could make an argument because there could be definitely like culture, family, like traditions, whatever. So there's some flexibility. But with Super Bowl, I do like it's kind of a free for all,
It's just
right?
appetizers,
And so
baby.
you can get a bunch of everything.
Yeah.
And so, I am inclined to agree with you. If it's not first, it's second to maybe 4th of July when
Yeah.
it's like burgers and hot dogs and hot links and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think you should have necessarily got as much criticism as you did.
And shout out to Jeff Snyder, by the way. He said Christmas breakfast, which I think is a sleeper in the conversation for best food options. I mean, and if you're going Christmas breakfast and we're talking days, you get Christmas breakfast and Christmas dinner. I think we're on to something there. But, so there you go. Well, I'm glad that we agree with this. You just agreed with somebody who hates cheese. So congratulations, Matt. I don't know what bucket that puts you in. Did I
might
mention
have
how
to
many
go.
cheese things I eat today? Mozzarella sticks, nachos, spinach artichoke, Parmesan dip. Philly
But
cheesesteak with cheese on it. Like, I'm just saying, I probably ate more cheese than most today.
The reports out there is that it was all vegan cheese, and so it's not necessarily real cheese.
There was a vegan dip that I did not have.
There we go.
But I did not have it.
Sure.
I did not have it. I'll tell you, I've had it before, and it's good. He makes his own vegan cheese, and it's a queso-esque dip, and it's good. I didn't eat it. I didn't touch it. So there you go. Jeff is going to be clogged. Buddy, I got a system that just fights through things over here. Don't care 187 wants to know, when does Luka get added to the 40-man roster? I think it's once pitchers and catchers report, right?
That should be. Yes. The Dodgers needed a little bit more help, and so they thought, why everybody's mad at us anyway, why not go and make a splash?
Yeah, if Luka got added, would anyone be happier than Max Muncy to see Luka Doncic added to the 40-man roster? No reason in particular, just curious.
Yeah, probably not. But also with that, I mean, I have seen like Markieff Morris and some of his and Maxi Kleber, who came over in that Lakers Mavericks trade, saying like if Luka's putting up these stats, maybe I should be 270 also. And I'm starting to think, well, wait a minute, is he really then 270? Because if he there's some middle ground here. Like, yes, credit to him if he is able to play that well at that weight, but for longevity purposes, let's maybe try to reel it in a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that man's about to get introduced to In-N-Out after eating Whataburger for the last 5 years. And I could just say, having been in Texas this week, there was an opportunity to go to Whataburger, and it was passed on. So we kept it moving. Obi-Wan, do you guys like Jack in the Box tacos? Yes, for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not like something I will eat all the time, but when it's late and Jack in the Box is open, absolutely.
Yeah. It's not gourmet, but like if I'm at Jack in the Box, there's a pretty good chance I'm getting tacos on the side of my sourdough Jack or whatever. Hawaiian Kira, when does Kershaw sign? Tomorrow?
No, I'll say Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay. Space it out. Pretend like this wasn't just a done deal on day number one.
I mean, hey, Brandon Gomes did tell us at Dodger Fest that they need to have some more talks with Kershaw. They've had some, so they need to see where things sort of stand with him.
Aaron wants to know, do you guys ever give food recommendations that aren't chain restaurants? I don't live in Los Angeles, so it's harder for me to give you all. I could give you Portland recommendations if anybody wants them. But I feel like you guys do a pretty good job. I mean, we try and talk knowing that not everybody lives in a very specific place, either in Los Angeles or even like California as a whole. But sometimes we throw. What's your favorite non-chain place right now, Matt?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And I guess there's like sit down, like take your wife out on a date for dinner type places versus like, the local lunch spot.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's, what constitutes what's a chain? I get, right? Is it 10 or more locations? Is it 5 or more?
Yeah.
Because honestly, the restaurant that we went to, was it last spring, the steakhouse that Ian took us to? So they have that location in Scottsdale. I think they have one in Phoenix. They have one now in Beverly Hills. And I think they're in Chicago. So they might be on the cusp of like a chain.
What's that one called again? Is it Prime something?
Steak. I think in Arizona it's Steak 44. For us here in LA, it was Steak 48, which I don't know like why. Like it's not like it's 44, 45, 46. It's like some of them are 44, some of them are 48. but yeah, I mean, that would probably be like, I think that restaurant is just very good. Um, Something more casual.
I was gonna guess if the 44, 48 was the order they were added to the United States, but that's not it. That was my only
No,
guess, and I
yeah,
just Googled it.
yeah, no, there's
Arizona
no,
was 48th, but
yeah, there's no rhyme or reason. From like, there's little like mom and pop like burger places that I've been to that I think are pretty good, but yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, like Cantors and Langers, like we were just talking pastrami, like those aren't
there you go.
chains, and those are definitely up on my list of favorites.
There you go. El Shiva wants to know, how will the Dodgers make room for Kiké on the 40-man roster? We mentioned this a little bit earlier, but Emmett Sheehan, Gavin Stone, River Ryan, and Brusdar Graterol are all guys that will be transferred to the 60-day IL. And so those can start happening tomorrow once pitchers and catchers report. So my guess is that tomorrow, let's say, they make this one official and they add Kiké to the 40-man roster. You can't add guys to the 60-day IL. You can't transfer players until their spot on the 40-man is actually needed. So Kiké will sign, then one of those guys will get moved. The rest will stay on until Kershaw signs, and then Kershaw will stay on the 40-man until somebody else signs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we've got.
See, yeah, and I see here I'll throw Mr. Classic says Kershaw's not coming back, LOL. Maybe he has some new up-to-date information that nobody else, including Kershaw himself, has sort of expressed at this point.
Let's see. Insanity. The only thing I don't like about food talks is sometimes it makes me want foods I cannot eat anymore. Apologies. I live with somebody with food allergies. I've tried different diets, so I feel your pain on this one. Blake, golly, why did the halftime show sound so bad, and why do people care about the drama of two people? Look, here's what I would say. We all have different tastes in things. My wife likes different music that I like. I can watch something and not call it objectively bad simply because it's not my cup of tea necessarily. Like, that's just the way I view the world. Like, was this the type of music that I put on in my car when I'm driving somewhere? Not necessarily. But my wife likes Kendrick Lamar, and she loved the halftime show. And so for somebody to say it's objectively bad because it's not the type of music they like, I just won't understand that type of person. That's my 2 cents, Matt.
I mean, I think that there are things that you could say were objectively bad, even if you're not necessarily like, you and I aren't a fan of the Chiefs or the Eagles, and that was an objectively bad kind of Super Bowl. Well,
yeah,
I guess not for. I mean, I think
bad Super Bowl. It's objectively that was a terrible Super Bowl.
I think there are cases where you could say, objectively speaking, that was bad or that was good. I don't know if that necessarily applies to this halftime show. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I'm indifferent on Kendrick Lamar. I know he is extremely popular. I know he's from LA. I get all that stuff. I saw him as an opener at a concert several years ago when he was at, like, not his full peak the way he is now, but still pretty popular. And I remember watching him there and thinking, oh, like, this guy was kind of overrated. It's just never struck. I've never really latched on to him. I thought the halftime show was okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't as great as I think some people are making it out to be. It wasn't Blake saying it was terrible. And I know in some circles, people are saying that Katy Perry's halftime show was better than Kendrick Lamar. I would not go that far. But yeah, I mean, it was average in my opinion.
Yeah. We have somebody asking best halftime show. The one from a couple of years ago with 50 Cent and Eminem and all the old school rappers. That was my favorite. Again, Blake's vote goes to Katy Perry. I don't know if you have a vote, Matt, in your favorite halftime show.
I mean, I'd have to go back and look just because there have been so many that I feel like I have forgotten them. But I, like, off memory, I think Beyonce has done 1 or 2 that have been entertaining. I thought Rihanna was pretty good. Justin Timberlake, I think, was it in Minnesota? I thought his was good.
That one, the Janet Jackson one?
No, not that far back. Yeah,
I see Blake saying we didn't answer his question about the drama. Like, we all care about things. Like the idea that, like, there's 2 people, Drake and Kendrick, will never meet them. Who cares? It's like, buddy, you watch Star Wars. Like, I like, we're all talking about a team of players that, like, none of us have personal relationships with. Like, this is just how our world works. If we only limited the things we cared about to the people that we actually know and interact with, we would not care about 99% of the things in our lives. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think I wouldn't say I necessarily care about the drama between the two. I do think that what has transpired is Drake has not come out favorably.
Not awesome. Tough, rough night to be Drake. Maybe Blake's a Drake guy. Maybe we didn't realize that. Maybe he's a big Drake guy. Who knows? Okay, couple more questions. Hater Tots. I live in San Diego. Have you all had tacos El Gordo when you're all working here? I've had tacos El Gordo in Vegas, and it's like top 3 tacos I've ever had in my life. Unbelievable.
See, so I haven't been, but I have heard mixed things about it. I've heard some people, as you say it's very good. I've heard others say it's a little overrated and it's so. So I have not gone, mainly because I'm not sure, especially the one in Vegas. Like, I don't know if I want to. I know that like the line is always really crazy.
Well,
so
what's nice is where we've stayed when we've gone, it's right across the street from Resorts World. But the Adobada tacos are like legitimately maybe the best tacos I've ever had. So that's what I got. Mr. Classic wants to know, is Luca really playing tomorrow? I don't. At D Starkend on Twitter, he'll hook you up with answers there. Tim G said,
if not, ESPN's going to have a very strict conversation with the Lakers, because twice now ESPN has picked up. It would be 2 instances of them picking up a Lakers game and him possibly not playing. I don't think that would go over very well with the TV partners.
Tim says over under 107.5 wins.
Don't ask me for a set number yet, but over.
I'm taking the over as well. Aaron says, does May or Gonsolin get traded this year? I could see Dustin May getting traded. It's his final year of team control. And if you get close to the deadline and the Dodgers don't really have a role carved out for him and they can get some value, I could see it. I would be surprised with Tony Gonsolin because of the years of team control and just because I think Tony Gonsolin's better than he gets credit for. You agree?
We could leave it at that. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have too. I could see one of the two getting traded. Yes.
Okay. Hey, Romo, what do you think of all the hate the Dodgers are getting? Are you an injected into my veins guy, Matt, or is it annoying to you?
Not enough. I don't care. I mean, I know I get on here and I say, look at the other teams. I do stand by that. Like, again, recognizing that the Dodgers do have benefits that other teams aren't privy to. But other than that, like when it's from fans, it's like, I didn't care when, fans were saying, oh, Mickey Mouse ring 2020, this and that. Like, who cares? Like, let them say what they want to say.
Dong wants to know, favorite commercial from today's game? Was it the seal one?
That was one of the ones that I thought was pretty funny. I think it probably still is the cancer one of the kid like ringing the bell and kind of being like a boxer, like kind of, beating cancer type thing. I think that
I saw Blake said the Reese's Lava one. Are you interested in that Reese's Lava candy?
No, absolutely not. The commercial, I remember seeing, the commercial was on. I didn't pay too much attention to it to say one way or the other. The candy, though, I don't think you would. My general stance is when you have a classic, you just don't mess with it. You let it be a classic for a reason. I think this falls under that category.
Agreed. All right, everybody. Hey, we appreciate you joining us here live. DodgerHeads presented by DodgerBlue.com. Again, 2,000 people in here. Thank you. Thanks to those joining us live, those watching after the fact, listening after the fact. We appreciate it. Again, tons of content coming, as always, through the week right here on the Dodger Blue 1958 YouTube channel. So please subscribe and ring the notification bell. We'd love to have you there. If you're a podcast person, Apple, Spotify, Google, find the DodgerHeads podcast, and you can follow us there as well. Check out DodgerBlue.com. Anything particular? They do like a This Day in Dodgers History. We do over on DodgerBlue.com, which is cool. We'll have more information on the Kiké Hernández signing as it comes. Anything else over there on the website to plug, Matt?
No, I mean, obviously spring training's coming up. I'll be out there the second to last week of February. And then I believe we're planning a trip for once I come back for you guys to then be out there. So that's look for, I guess, kind of direct coverage from there. But I mean, in the meantime, obviously there's going to be a ton of different storylines that we'll definitely be on top of. Pitchers and catchers report on Monday. Their first workout is Tuesday. First full squad workout is Saturday. So things are certainly going to be picking up. Good stuff. Well, hey, everybody, enjoy the rest of your night. Again, lots to be excited about. Kiké Hernández is the Dodger probably at the top of that list. So enjoy the rest of your night. As always, go Dodgers and still champs.